called Love and Light. Which always gives me a really good start to the morning when I hear it. So I hope you did enjoy it too. And on today's show, I'm delighted to be having a really nice focus on basically a series of stories which are called the Gaza Monologues. Now, this is a recent call out by a theatre company called Ashtar Theatre. And I think it was just over maybe 10 days ago, so just under 2 weeks. And they did a call out asking theatre makers, artists, creatives, if they would kind of share these monologues. Read them, perform them in any capacity that is possible. So this is meant to be as part of a day of solidarity with the people of Palestine. So the call out basically stated that Ashtar Theatre have launched an urgent request to theatre makers around the world to publicly read or perform the Gaza Monologues on November 29th. This is an international day of solidarity with the Palestinian people, a significant day for those who value justice, equality, and freedom. The Gaza Monologues are testimonies written by Ashtar youth in 2010 after the first war on the Gaza Strip. And the call out says that tragically these monologues are still accurate today. So tomorrow is the 29th. And what will be happening is there are theatre makers and venues across the country who will be sharing and reading these monologues. So I thought today's show would be really interesting to feature some of those and kind of just signpost you obviously other things that are taking place. Now, obviously, on the book club show, we tend to focus on a mixture of both fiction and non-fiction books. And maybe what we haven't done actually, or I haven't done on the show, is feature a lot of kind of theatre work. But actually, I would say after books, theatre is probably my next big love. And it's something, you know, I enjoy going to the theatre. I enjoy kind of watching live performance. And especially, actually, if you've not done this before, if you are, which I hope you are because you're listening to the book club show into reading, there are lots of, just like you get films based on books, you actually sometimes get kind of theatre plays also based on books as well. So that's a really, I would say, if you've not maybe been to the theatre before, that's a good introduction. So if you've read a particular book, you can kind of keep a lookout for different kind of theatre venues if they've done an adaptation of a certain kind of book. That's always wonderful to see. Now, in terms of today's show, obviously what we're featuring are monologues. Now, what monologues are, it's basically, if you imagine there's a character who has kind of a focus on one character and what that one character is saying. So it could be sharing a story. It could be, it almost sounds like a long form kind of sharing by a character. So it's not quite a speech, but you're basically hearing what the character has to say. And basically, I mean, I guess in basic terms, that's kind of what a monologue is. So if you think about the word dialogue, that tends to be a conversation between two people, and mono obviously meaning one. It is literally like a character maybe kind of sharing something which is you know, with a particular reader or with an audience, depending on the context that you're listening to them. So basically, as it said in the little introduction that I shared, now these were monologues that are written by young people in Gaza, and but this was back in 2010. But obviously, we know that was like 13 years ago, and obviously this is something which is potentially quite now relevant, even today. So, but just bearing in mind, some of the monologues obviously that I'll be sharing, the context might be slightly different if maybe young people were writing them now. In terms of the ages of the young people that are sharing, it kind of varies between maybe 13 to up to, I think it's mostly teenagers basically. So that kind of gives you a little bit of context of where and who some of these monologues are written by, and who they're kind of who they're based on, which I think is really important to kind of know as well. So I think it's really wonderful that, you know, there is an opportunity that you are able to not only go watch them, but Ashtar Theatre Company themselves have made the monologues downloadable, so you're able to download them from, I think the website is gazamonologues.com, but I will check that and I will confirm that a little bit later on in the show. So basically what we will do is we can start with some of those monologues, and what I will do is kind of share my own reflections after having read maybe a couple. And if you have any thoughts and comments that you'd like to share as well, you can obviously call in the studio on 01582481822 or WhatsApp 07779481822. Right, so obviously these monologues, which obviously I'm going to read, have been obviously translated from the original Arabic, and these translations are by Fida Jirius. Now the first monologue is by Anas Abu Aita. So he was born in 1995 in the area of Sheikh Radwan. So just a reminder that obviously he would have been, when these were kind of performed or written in 2010, but so he would have been 15. Since I was a small kid, I've dreamt of being a famous football player. I believed I would fulfill my dreams, but today there are a million obstacles in my path. Before, there were no playing fields for adults or even kids. Then the siege came and made everything worse. If I was the Prime Minister, I'd pay most attention to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I would build playing fields everywhere, especially in schools, and I'd let the students play freely, not to be kicked out by the school guard. I'd abolish all club fees and preserve all parks. But dreams, security, hope, and the future are all words that lose their meaning in a city that kills the smallest dream possible. I was a goalkeeper, and my friend Mohammed kept telling me, I'm going to get a goal, but I always stopped his goals. On the 7th of January 2009, a day in the war, I was sitting at the door of our house and it was foggy, and someone came to tell me your friend Mohammed was martyred. Of course, I didn't believe it. I went looking for my friend and I was really scared of the idea of death. I got to the mosque and saw the closest friend in my life, Mohammed, wrapped in the flag of Palestine and torn into pieces. I cried a lot, and I was sad because I couldn't hug or kiss him. And I started holding him. We took him to the cemetery and buried him. And I kept sitting there, telling him that I loved him. And I was really upset because he left me alone in this world. As I was leaving the cemetery, there was heavy bombing. I felt that the angel of death was following me and not leaving me alone. But thank God, I'm still alive. So that was the first monologue. So this is not actually the first monologue which is in the series that Ashtar Theatre have shared. So I've just selected a few. I can't now actually remember the total. I think it's probably between 30 and 40. Again, I can check that. So there's quite a few of these testimonies that have been written. So yeah, I've just selected a few of them. So this one was by Anas Abu Aita in the area of Sheikh Radwan. So I guess like my initial kind of reaction to that one is this kind of ideas of obviously young people, in regardless of kind of where you live. You obviously we all have these dreams and hopes for what we want to do when we're older and what maybe we want to become. Obviously, and him in particular wanting to become a famous kind of football player. But this idea of that kind of dream being completely destroyed because of the experience, because of the war, because of everything that's went on, on that one particular day when he lost his friend. So I think, this idea that he also says that he was really scared of the idea of death. And I guess that is kind of a reflection, especially for ourselves as Muslims. Obviously, we should, I guess, remember death. We're told to remember it because obviously we know this life is temporary. We know there's kind of a life after this one, but I guess this is something which is so much more pronounced when you're literally seeing death with your own eyes. You're seeing you're almost kind of living it, day in, day out. And I guess what impact does that have on a young person? Of course it would impact somebody of any age. So that is definitely something which is, it does strike you know, and I guess, yeah, there's a sense of sadness there because for many of us who might be parents or carers or teachers, we want to instill that kind of hope. We want to instill the idea of being able to dream and being able to dream really big. And we want, you know, our children or maybe our students or whoever we care for to be able to fulfill their potential. So definitely, I guess there's a sense of a loss when we think about that. So then we've got also this monologue, which is written by Amani, a Sharafa. So she was born in 1992 in the area of Al Ramal. So she, at the time of writing this, would have been 18. Gaza is a plane carrying people and traveling towards the unknown, landing neither in heaven nor in hell. No one knows when it will land, and people may stay suspended like that for twice my lifetime. All days here are the same. There's nothing new. The simplest thing is that dreams and wishes are hard to make true in Gaza, especially if they're like mine, to be an artist, singing and acting and playing music. In Gaza, the only music is that of death and dancing on booths. If I go abroad and study directing, how would society look at me? After I graduate, would the country be like now or worse? Everything for me is foggy and unclear, like people's faces on Friday at the Faras market, and like the day the war began. The first hit was at Ministry of Passports. My friend and I came out of an exam. It was the first day of the first term exams. We sat in front of the school gate talking and waiting for the rest of our friends so we'd go home together. Suddenly, there was a series of explosions. I was in shock and felt that I was going to die. We ran away and I was really scared. I saw the women running and screaming and beating their faces, and I had no idea what was going on. I felt I couldn't stand on my legs and the world started spinning. I fainted and stopped feeling anything. Then I woke up to my friend's voice shouting, "Amani, for God's sake, wake up." When I woke up, I started crying, not knowing where to go or what to do. An older girl helped me and took me home. As soon as I arrived, my mother took me in her arms. I was very tired, but at that moment I rested. I needed to fall into someone's arms. The hardest thing to feel is that your moment of death is near. The war was like a black ghost that covered Gaza's day and night. It imposed its hell on people, on the earth and sky and air and the air that we breathe. After the war, I had a breakdown. A big, wild wave overtook my soul. I was thinking I wouldn't be able to come out from under it. But it was like a hand was extended to me through the theatre, a rubber ring that pulled me out from under the wave. Today, I feel a comfort that I haven't felt in a long time, and I hope I can always stay like this. So that monologue was by Amani, a Sharafa. I think what's interesting is what was shared at the end of her monologue about the feeling of that interaction with the theatre, and it kind of almost being something that has saved her from this big kind of what she describes as a wave that overtakes her soul. And, you know, I think maybe this is something that also makes, you know, things like literature and books and art and creativity so important, because obviously there's one element, if we're quite privileged, that it's a form of entertainment and joy, but for people who have suffered something quite traumatic and something which is very heavy on the soul, you know, I guess it's such a huge blessing to be able to use creativity and to be able to use art to have a sense of actually what are our feelings, what are our emotions, and becomes, you know, in some sense very cathartic. And I guess I get that feeling from Amani, who wrote this monologue, and the way she's ended that monologue. And again, it's that kind of sense of hope. So whereas the first monologue, you've got the sense of actually almost losing hope and being able to fulfill your dreams, you know, we've got here actually there is a way that we are able to find hope, and we're able to maybe find some sort of, I guess, positive outlet in a situation which is very kind of cruel and dire. So I think that's one way, I guess, of looking at Amani's experience of what she's written herself. So the next monologue that I'm going to share is one that has been written by Ahab Elian. So he was born 1994 in Al-Saftawi Street. From when I became aware of the world, I've had limited thinking. Life for me was to be born, grow up, get married, have kids, work, raise them, feed them, educate them, marry them off, and then die. But after the war, I found that life is much harder than that. It turned out that every small step we take has a million knots behind it. I'm scared of not finding work when I grow up, because wherever I go, I see men sitting in front of their houses with nothing to do. It's what scares and saddens me the most. That's why kids in Gaza took responsibility and were denied their childhood since birth. My mother always used to say, Ahab is the best of my kids, because I was always at home, never had any problems. When the war started, my father locked us up at home because of how scared he was for us. 2 hours later, I was bored. I went out to walk around our house, but this time the walk was different. I was afraid to walk near the cars in case they were bombed. And all the time, I kept looking up at the sky in case a plane would come and bomb me without me knowing. I was terrified, even though the Saftawi district didn't see a lot of activity. I went back home running as though from something terrifying and stayed at home till the war was over. After the war, my life changed a lot. My relationship with people and the neighbours improved. I became known to the men of the neighbourhood and started playing checkers with the old people. I started spending all my time outside the house, can't stay inside for a minute. And my mother stopped saying, Ahab is the best one of my kids. I discovered that I didn't exist before the war, but after the war, here I am. God protect me. In the city, breathing its air, singing, dancing, and crying with it, and life is rolling onwards. So that was a monologue by Eheb Alian. So he was born in 1994. So that would, in 2010, make him 16 years old. And I think subhanAllah, it's really interesting in the sense that, he mentions his mother twice, once kind of before, in the sense that she said that he's the best one of my kids. And I know sometimes parents kind of compare their children, and lots of parents, I think, tend to really, really like the children who are quiet and who are kind of really well mannered and who don't give, their parents any issues, which is kind of, there's a kind of a sense of a sense of humor, but then obviously there's this underlying sadness, because when he obviously mentions it again, the fact that actually he can't bear to kind of stay at home, because this idea of being very fearful and not wanting to go out and not wanting to venture out, of course, with everything that is happening at the time that was happening in Gaza, and obviously what's happening as well now. And the idea that, because he spends all the time, playing with the older people, playing checkers, his mum is like, no, he's not one of, or not that she said he's not, but that she just stopped saying that he's one of my best kids. But again, this monologue ends with this idea that despite the fact that there is, as he says, a war, and how he's describing his life before and after, there's this sense of, just, I guess in some ways it feels to me that just by being alive and having the blessing of being able to live is kind of a form of, resistance and hope, in itself. And, this idea that he's breathing its air and he's singing and he's dancing, and life is just, what he says, like rolling onwards. And I guess that is what happens. We, in any part of the world or any situation where there's kind of a feeling of oppression, or there's, a sense of kind of despair, I guess, people find resilience and people find hope, and they're able to carry on with their lives in the best way that they know. So again, I guess there's potential, a feeling of kind of sense of hope, even this monologue at the end as well. So another monologue here is by Taima Okasha. So she was born in 1997 at Atufa. Macaroni, mujaddara, noodles and cans of all shapes and colours, made in Morocco, China, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Somalia, and the date of expiry doesn't matter. In the war, all the streets were filled with empty cans. A lot of kids wounded their legs on the empty cans. The occupation was leading a war on us in the earth and sky, and we had declared a vicious war on food. We used to eat 100 times a day. Whenever we opened our eyes from 6 in the morning till the next day 6 in the morning, we'd be eating. I thought only our house was like that, but when I asked, they told me all Gaza went crazy for food. I thought the state of the war and the scenes of martyrs and destruction would affect people's appetite for food. But it seems that the state of fear, horror, and worry makes people more hungry and they eat more. It could also be that the whole family was at our place, especially the girls. They competed on who would make tastier food, and my poor father couldn't keep up, carrying bags of food of all shapes and colours. The food we ate in 20 days of war was enough for a year, and the problem was every time I said I don't want to eat, I ate more. When I grow up, I want to be a journalist or a lawyer or a prime minister. A journalist so I could photograph the beauty and simplicity in Gaza because I love it. I love its salt, sand and air, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. A lawyer so I could defend all the deprived and mistreated people in the city because I don't like seeing anyone suffer in it. And I wish I could be the prime minister so I could force law and order on the city because that's where the solution begins. So we're going to continue the Gaza monologues in the second half of the show, and we will be back in a few moments. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Tafael. I'm the director of MFest. Please keep listening to Inspire FM at 105.1 FM.
Enjoy quality and tasty 100% authentic halal Chinese and Thai food from Gao Express, brought to you by the team behind Top's Pizza in Luton. Choose from all your delicious Chinese and Thai favourites. Then order for delivery or collection from Gao Express in Wellington Street, Luton, Marketplace, Stevenage, and now also on Nightingale Road in Hitchin. Open daily midday till late. Find the number or order online at Gao, that's GAO, express.co.uk, or like Gao Express on Facebook.
Do you have a legal problem? Are you trying to settle a family member? If so, then contact M&K Solicitors. M&K Solicitors are a leading local firm specialising in immigration, family, personal injury, clinical negligence, civil and property law. Our solicitors have over 20 years' experience and are recognised internationally. Our success rate speaks for itself. Take advantage of our free consultations for your first meeting. We also give free advice on Fridays, no appointment needed. That's right, free legal advice. M&K Solicitors. Call 01582 732 503.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من تمسك بسنتي عند فساد أمتي فله أجر 100 شهيد. That whoever holds tight my sunnah when there is corruption in my ummah, for him will be the reward of 100 martyrs.
Attention for landlords. क्या आप चाहते हैं कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी जल्द से जल्द किराए पर लग जाए और आपकी प्रॉपर्टी की 100% देखभाल के साथ साथ किराया भी पर वक्त मिले? तो मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल से राब्ता कीजिए। मैरीगोल्ड रेजिडेंशियल्स अब प्रॉपर्टी की खरीदो फरोख्त का काम भी करते हैं। अगर आप अपनी प्रॉपर्टी रेंट पर खरीदना या बेचना चाहते हैं तो आज ही फोन कीजिए 01582 617 617 251 Dunstable Road, Luton. Terms and conditions apply.
The Masjid of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a center for the world, not just for learning, but also for social, political, administrative, and communal welfare, providing for the homeless, impoverished, and needy. Join us at our fundraising dinner, an exclusive chance to delve into the vision and overarching plans for the Medina Center. Your participation will allow you to share feedback and contribute to transforming this vision into a tangible reality through your ideas and generous donations. For tickets, please call 01582 48 1822 or text or WhatsApp on 0777 948 1822 to request the link. Come down and be a part of this amazing vision for the Medina Center on Friday 8th December at 6:30 p.m. at Venue Central, Leagrave Road.
Do you feel at times that you just can't cope anymore? Do you find raising a child in today's society challenging? Join me in my parenting show where I aim to discuss these challenges of raising our children, ranging from nurturing sentiment to building the leaders of tomorrow. Every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. live with Sister Navid on Inspire FM or via our Inspire FM Facebook page. The Parenting Show at 7 p.m. every Tuesday evening on Inspire FM.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Book Club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood, and on today's show we are talking about the Gaza Monologues. These are a series of monologues that have been written or produced by Ashtar Theatre, which is a Palestinian theatre company. And the monologues are based on young voices. So the monologues have been written by children. Roughly the ones that I've shared in the first half of the show are kind of ranging from, I think, about between 13 to 18 at the moment. So those kind of vary a little bit. And this is basically coming out from a call out by Ashtar Theatre Company, who were requesting people to read, share, perform these monologues for specifically the 29th of November, which is meant to be a day of solidarity. And I think it's really wonderful that a lot of kind of theatre makers and artists and creators have come together to share and read these monologues, which will be happening on Wednesday, the 29th. And today's show is just to select a few of those monologues that we can kind of share to give you an idea. They are you are able to download them from the website, which is gazamonologues.com. So I think Ashtar Theatre Company have been extremely kind to be able to share that, but obviously there is a sense of wanting to support. And I think what I mentioned in the first half of the show is actually how powerful art and creativity can be, for people to come together and be able to share really powerful stories. And I guess that is the power of storytelling. That is the power of art, but it becomes even more powerful when people are able to come together in that sense of kind of communal kind of spaces, safe spaces, and we're able to really learn, I guess, from other people's experiences as well, which is very important. And I guess the second part of that is how important the voices of young people are, because we were all young once. I definitely was a long time ago, and we have this sense of there is a sense, obviously, when you're growing up of hope and dreams and wanting to aspire to become something, of meaning and impact, and almost, I guess, be this kind of light, for our communities. And it's a really wonderful, intention to have, and it's important that we do give space for young people. So even, I guess, in the Luton context, there are so many young people that are trying to, I guess, find their space in this world, and become more confident in terms of what they believe in and what they want to share. And it's so important that instead of shutting those voices down, that we just create those space and actually show them that what they are saying, it's important, and that we're able to learn from them. Because actually, I think one thing, especially myself as a mother, the one thing my children do, they definitely hold up the mirror to me. there is nothing like your own child who is able to really keep you grounded and is able to give you kind of their honest opinion in a way which is still very loving, but it really does make you stop and think like, oh, okay. So I'm sure there's probably lots of parents and carers who are listening who I'm assuming are able to relate to that. But alhamdulillah, that we do have young people in our lives who are there and who are and I hope who we are able, to kind of help them to kind of develop and able to support them in any way, that is necessary. So coming back to the Gaza monologues. So in the first half of the show, I think I shared about 4 different ones. So we're going to continue with these monologues. So the next one has been written by Reem Afana. She was born in 1996, Al Saftawi Street. When I was young, I used to feel that I was the happiest child in the world. But the more I grow and my mind grows, the more my worry grows, because I start to understand things I did not. I started to know the meaning of a deprived child. The thing that upsets me and makes me cry the most are children's tears. All children in the world, regardless of their nationality, religion, or colour. When I grow up, I want to be a pediatrician, and that's the hope that gives me a big push in life. Even though I'm fed up, bored, and sad, because Gaza doesn't have life anymore. Yesterday, I was sitting in school and I heard the sound of planes. I got really scared. I wanted to run away from school. I felt I was going to die because I remembered the war. The scenes of war won't leave my mind. On the 3rd day of the war, my family was sitting together, talking about what was happening in the war, and my grandmother was reassuring us so we wouldn't be scared. We were actually calmed, even though the sound of rockets didn't help. It didn't stop, but my grandmother's warm voice was calming us. The phone rang. The lines never caught in the war, so when we heard the sound of the phone, we were happy. Hello? Yes? This is the Israeli Defense Army. You have 5 minutes to clear the house. It's for your own benefit. We have warned you. I couldn't stand on my legs anymore. Everyone in the house started yelling. My grandmother was the first to run away. It was the first time I'd seen her going so fast. My dad held me and my sisters and told us not to be scared. He was pulling me to leave, but I was going to die if I didn't take my teddy bear with me. I felt that I would betray him if I left him under the bombing. I escaped from Dad's hands and ran to my bear, took him in my arms and left. We all got far away from the house and sat down to wait for the 5 minutes. They were the longest 5 minutes in history. They became 10. We felt like they were years that passed. I was in a whirlwind. Thoughts and dreams were thrashing about in my head and the world was spinning. I felt that the dream of being a doctor was very, very far away. I held the bear and remembered myself when I was small, how I was always laughing. I want to go back to being small and stay small. I don't want to grow up. But the only thing that comforted me was the love of people who didn't leave us for one moment. Gaza is full of love. So that monologue was written by Reem Afana. So being born in 1996, so in 2010, when these monologues were written, she would have been 14. And I think that is something, my immediate reflection on that is the fact that she obviously wrote it when she was still a very young teenager, but the experience obviously she's talking about would have been much earlier. I mean, I have 2 daughters, they're 14 and 12. And yeah, I think there's a sense of heartbreak when I think about children who are, I mean, to be honest, of any age, there's something about hearing children's stories of children who are similar to my own children. I think there's such a deep sense of, I don't know. There's something about, that kind of heartbreak that there are children in the world who are going through some such extreme, dire situations and having to cope, I guess, in these kind of moments. And, I think the fact that when she wrote that she just didn't want to leave her teddy bear, because she almost, I think she used the word like she would feel like she'd betrayed him. And actually that also gives a sense of potentially how old Reem was when she had this experience. And and actually these possessions that we have, especially as children, they're really, really important to us. They could be a teddy bear, it could be I don't know, a particular doll, it could be some special trinket. I mean, it could be anything. But when you're a child, all these possessions that you have, they mean the world to you. And even now when we see things in the media, and the way children are holding on to possessions, but also if they have the opportunity to go back, and obviously all that is left is rubble, and for them to be able to kind of dig through this rubble trying to find these possessions that have kind of meant the world to them, I think is quite heartbreaking. And it is, but again, it's that sense of, I think I will probably spend a lot of this show kind of talking about hope, because we don't want to feel, kind of fall into a complete kind of despair. And I think that sense of hope, of hoping that even if you lose those possessions, she Reem has ended her monologue talking about the fact that she was comforted by the love of the people in Gaza, and actually how important that is. And I think there's something that we don't want to lose, I guess, sight of. And it's a conversation. It's something that's come up on a previous show. So when I was talking to Sumadeen about her book Dear Mother, and we were having this conversation about risk, about the provision that Allah he gives us. I was talking recently even to my own children about the concept of risk, and how actually everything that we have, and it doesn't just have to be material things, that even our relationships, even that sense of love that we feel from other people, it's it's kind of intermediary. It's obviously that love is actually the love that we're receiving from Allah, but it's coming through people. So yeah, the fact that she ends, her monologue on this idea of feeling loved, and that saying, her final statement, that monologue is, Gaza is full of love. It's a really beautiful sentiment for such a young person to still be able to hold on to that, despite experiencing something quite traumatic. The next monologue that I was going to share is by Rima Al Sadi, born in 1995, Sheikh Radwan. I was 9 years old when we returned from the Emirates. It was the first time I visit Gaza. The car was moving along the street and I was looking out from the window. I didn't like anything in the city. When we stood at a traffic light, a lot of kids came to the car begging, selling gum and biscuits. Then I hated myself and wanted to go back to the Emirates. Since then, I have lived in Gaza and will not leave it, even if they give me a choice between it and Paris. Because I discovered that the love inside it is enough for the whole world, and that places are in their people, not in their buildings or views. Mum always talked to me about Gaza when we were in the Emirates. I liked it before I saw it, but once I lived in it, I liked it more. It has details that Mum didn't see, but it's such a pity. All it needs is safety to be the most beautiful city in the world. In the war, the Taqwa Mosque and the Noor Mosque were bombed, and after that, the house of Abu al-Ghari. And the Abu al-Ghari's house is our topic. They're our neighbors, and the Israeli Secret Services threatened them with bombing. People told us to live on the bottom floor. It's safer. So when they bombed the Abu al-Ghari house, it won't hit us. We went down to the first floor and waited for the army to bomb Abu al-Ghari's house. But they bombed the Noor Mosque instead. All its windows, doors and stones flew on us while we were in the apartment. I was very injured. All the doors fell on my head. Of course, there was screaming and the house was in a total mess. The next day, we had a family meeting and decided to go back to the upper flat, and we did. We moved to the top floor. But this time, they hit the Taqwa Mosque. All the glass and stones flew up on us in the top floor. So we decided to go down in the bottom floor because it's safer. And we sat and waited for the army to bomb the Abu al-Ghari house. And that night they really did. They threw the first rocket, then the second, but it didn't explode. And if they threw another rocket and hit the one which didn't explode, the whole neighborhood would have been wiped out. And people would have said, here was Abu al-Ghari's neighborhood. So that monologue was written by Rima al-Sadi, born in 1995, in the place of Ashtar Radwan. So I guess there's kind of two different, reflections that I have on this monologue. The first is when Rima says about Gaza that all it needs is safety to be the most beautiful city in the world. And it's such a powerful statement, I think, if you really stop and think about it. Firstly, safety or wanting to feel safe is such a basic human right. I mean, to not feel safe, I can't even imagine, to live a life where you're not in kind of spend most of your time feeling safe, because it's such a basic human need. In order to be able to function properly, we need to have that sense of safety. But for something to be predicated on safety in order for you to kind of enjoy the beauty of the place that you live, again, there is that kind of really sense of sadness and I guess a little bit of anger about, when you have politicians and, every time we have a sense of, there's war taking place, and we say never again, but then obviously it happens again, and then there's lots of people who aren't feeling safe anymore. So even in the context of the UK, we have, for example, because of Islamophobia, you've got Muslim people who aren't feeling safe because of anti-Semitism. You have Jewish people who aren't feeling safe. So, it's really unfortunate that if we're living in a society where people don't feel safe, and actually it's really important that people of all different backgrounds and all faiths and able to come together and actually really support each other to have that sense of safety and to come together and fight those that actually want to try to take it away from us. So, in this sense, solidarity is very, very important. And so the idea that, Reem says that, we'd be able to appreciate the beauty of Gaza if it only had, safety. And, maybe I think it's something that we should do dua for, that all, people across the world who maybe are in kind of not living in safety, that, Allah is able to grant them safety. It's such an important thing. And also, I guess that the second reflection really is the idea that, they're living in their house, and the number of times they have to move within their house because they're trying to anticipate actually which part of our house will be the most safe in, and each time they move, there's a bombing and they still get injured, and they obviously naturally will still get kind of impacted. And again, the sense of, you have to navigate these kind of decisions. I mean, myself, again, talking from a place of privilege, what I spend most of the time thinking, what do I have to make for dinner? Or, what do I, what meeting do I have now that I need to go to? And, but it really gives you this sense of actually how important and it is to have that feeling of safety and have comfort and, all these things that, many of us take for granted. So that's definitely, my main, I guess, two reflections on that monologue specifically. So I think we've got time for a couple more. And so the next one here has been written by Suha al-Mamluk, born in 1995 in Ad-Dufa. Every day Gaza changes. That's why my dreams always change. And each time I make a step forward, I go 100 back. In the first hit of the war, I was going home from school and didn't know the road. Suddenly a man stood in front of me and asked me, "Where's your house?" I told him and he took me home. I went down to the house quickly and asked my dad, "Why didn't you come get me?" My mum said, "It's normal, dear. Go study." I told her there are no exams, the war started. In the afternoon, they hit the government building near us. My mum said, "It's normal. We are used to what is happening to us." We went running to the neighbours, each one looking out for himself. After minutes, the neighbours' relatives started coming, and the house became packed with more than 100 people in it. But still, things stayed normal for my mother. In the morning, Dad went to buy bread and stood in line for 6 hours, coming home with one pack of bread. Each of us got half a loaf, and still my mum said, normal. In the evening, my parents decided to go to the hospital and visit the injured, and I went with them. In the hospital, we saw many corpses. There were 4 on each bed, under and on top of each other. Only then my mother said, this is not normal. The war isn't over. The war is big, and I fear to grow up with it. I've always scared of a new war. If a balloon bursts, I'm scared. If a car hits a strong brake, I jump 20 meters. And if a small kid yells, I start yelling with him. I stay up all night waiting for a new dream, but each morning that comes does not differ from the one that passed. So that monologue was written by Suha al-Mamluk. So again, born in 1995, she would be then 15 years old at the time of writing this monologues. So just a reminder that these are the Gaza Monologues by Ashtar Theatre Company. So my my first thoughts on this one is the number of times actually the word normal is used, and even in the monologue itself, the word normal is written in kind of bold. And and what is normality? Again, for those of us living in Luton, living in the UK, that normality, if you're a student, could be, your daily routine of having to go to, I don't know, school or university, and then having to do homework or some assignments. Normality as a parent might be having to do the school run, and then maybe you go off to work outside the house, maybe having to work inside the house. And then, preparing a meal for the evening. So, everyone's normality is very different, but normality in places like Gaza, I think, very, very different, in the sense that actually you have that kind of sense of disconnect in this monologue between the child and the mother. So obviously, because Suha's saying that, every time something really, scary would happen, her mum would be like, oh no, it's normal, we're kind of used to this. So it's only when she sees kind of the way people have been injured and wounded and the way they are in hospital, that's she sees that sight in front of her, and then she said, actually, this isn't normal. So I guess it's that kind of where does that kind of bar change for normality? Whereas for us, none of that would be normal. But maybe when that becomes every day of your living, and it's only when things are really worse, you suddenly think, actually, no, this isn't normal. And, again, what are our basic needs? What are basic human rights? And, these are something we should all really be striving to try, achieve. So, it's so important that we're able to do that. For each other. Now, another monologue which I definitely wanted to share, and I want to make sure that there's enough time that I have to share it, was this one written by Fatima Abu Hashim, born in 1996, so would have been 14 at the time of writing this monologue for Ashtar Theatre Company. So she would be the same age as my eldest daughter. When I talk to Palestinian kids in Europe, I feel sorry for them. And I don't wish to be like them because they're in diaspora. They plant their dreams in a land that's not theirs. Dreams grow with the people and the country. I love life, love to play, and love people. I wish I could be the president of Palestine for one day, so I can enrich love and peace between people, end the hatred and spite in the hearts, and end the internal division. This would be my first presidential decision. But unfortunately, I'm not the president, and that's why there was a war. The war opened up with bombing like rain. We came running out of school in fear and found the whole world running in the streets. People were looking for their sons and sisters and mothers. Everyone was running with their heads raised to the sky. Honestly, they looked strange. I saw one of them from a distance wearing pajamas, barefoot and running. When I first saw her, I didn't recognize her. But when I got close to her, wow, that's my uncle's wife. the chic one who doesn't leave the house without looking top notch. Then I was sure the war had started. It's been more than a year since we've been talking about the war. We lived it and continue to live it each day in detail. Because the TV, the phone, and the doorbell are all things that remind me of the war, and I don't like them. You know, I even threw away my mobile, and I'm most scared of being alone. I think, what would I do if a war starts and I'm alone? Who will protect me? And when I'm with the family, I start to think how I would protect them. I had a big dream to become an actress. But this dream started shrinking slowly because people in my country don't look at an actress in a positive way. Even though acting is important, it allows me to relay the picture of the suffering of my country and society to the world. I have a second dream if the first doesn't work out, to be a journalist. And the third dream is to make a family that I love who love me. The fourth is for us to be free and for the flag of Palestine to fly freely. And the fifth is to see people happy, without death, destruction, deprivation, or war. And the sixth and last is for me to finish this monologue and come down from the stage. So that monologue was written by Fatima Abu Hashim, born in 1996, Al-Jalaa Street. So on today's show, I've shared some selection of the Gaza Monologues by Ashtar Theatre Company. I want to be in complete solidarity with all the young people that shared these monologues back in 2010. And also to do dua for children and young people around the world who are I shouldn't be getting emotional on the radio because I don't want it to go silent. So yes, to do dua for all the children who around the world are struggling and suffering, but also complete solidarity with their hopes and dreams for the future. And, you know, inshallah, we're able to continue to do that for one another. So keep them all in your duas. Assalamu alaikum.
एक वक्फे के बाद साबरा हुसैन पेश करेंगी दीनी मालूमात पर मबनी प्रोग्राम दीन और दुनिया। सुनते रहिए